Attention car dealers. 90% of car sales start with a click. A click on a clean, professional image. Increase your click rates by up to 52% with professional, high-resolution, sleek, crisp, eye-catching images, specially designed to turn more viewers into buyers. But getting those images is time-consuming, expensive, challenging? Wrong. Create stunning car images, fast, easy, and fully automated.
Hey y'all, welcome back. It is another ASOTU Edge webinar. I'm Anne-Marie. Today we're going to be talking about the Smart 5 for 2025, essential techniques for digital merchandising success with our friends at CarCutter. So you all know Paul J. Daly and Kyle Mountseer. We're also going to be joined by Daniel Abel. He is the National Sales Manager for the US and Canada markets with CarCutter, as well as Brian Free, former Vice President of Digital Marketing for AutoNation. Enjoy. We'll see you in a little bit. Take it away, Paul and Kyle.
Yo, I don't know if you heard the commercial music, but that was hype.
That was some serious hype commercial music. Yeah.
I had me going like all of a sudden we're starting like, oh, I'm not supposed to be dancing. I'm supposed to be starting. Look, you know, I'm so excited for today's conversation specifically for a few reasons. Number one, you and I talk about merchandising being the first step in retailing all the time. We've been doing it for years. So I think it's like right down the line of the center of what the conversation needs to be from the get-go when you start to analyze what your website's doing, why people are clicking, where they're clicking. And so the conversation just in that just gets us excited anyway. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah, you hear about like the blocking and tackling conversation. It's a very footballish metaphor, and we talk about it on the showroom, like the blocking and tackling of the meet and greet, the blocking and tackling of saying hi on the phone. Like you have to have certain things out of the way, dialed in before you can start piling on the rest of the stuff. My good friend Ben Hadley, he says, like you can't, like if you have a broken mouse trap, you know, why put any cheese on it, right? So when you think about every single person that's going to interact with any level of inventory, which is the thing that you have to make business outcomes happen. If you don't have the blocking and tackling of that thing done, then all of your Google ad spend, all that SEO stuff that you're doing, all of your third-party vendor spend that you're doing, these thousands and thousands of dollars that we're inviting people into shopping behavior with us on multiple different platforms just starts to go broke basically. And you haven't fixed the mouse trap before you fix the cheese. And so I'm really excited about like how we talk about the actual performance results, how to get that done today, because I think it's something that we haven't gone back and realized like that's a blocking and tackling issue all across merchandising in our efforts.
Well, in that case, I mean, no reason to prolong it. Let's bring in Daniel Abel, National Sales Manager for CarCutter, and Brian Free, former VP of Digital Marketing for AutoNation. We've been saying this all week on our morning show. Like you might have a thing or two in mind, a little bit of experience, Brian, with this area. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to meet you guys.
What's up, guys? How are y'all?
Hey, there he is.
Great. We are doing great. So, like let's get to know you for a second. Brian, why don't you go first? Because like we threw the title out there, but tell us what that actually means in your career. Like what have you done and why is this something you care a lot about?
Sure. So yeah, you know, I was formerly with AutoNation. I've been in the automotive space for just under 27 years. So kind of grew up in all digital, you know, was there before it was there. But, you know, in my role, I was responsible for all of the dealer websites. So 300 plus of those, AutoNation.com, the flagship portal, plus a bunch of other websites. We have a standalone, the AutoNation has a standalone used car business, AutoNation USA, and some other business lines. So all websites, my goal was to drive traffic to them, really focused on organic SEO, and then everything about websites, content, imagery, which we're going to talk about today, and all of and focus on conversion. You mentioned in your opening, you know, that's you get people to the website. Yeah, that's great, and that's a big part of it. But what do they do when they get there? So that was my focus day to day, was just driving that and driving customers to convert to hand raises in stores.
Right on, Daniel.
Cool. First of all, I want to say. Yeah, I want to say I feel like I'm in the room with royalty with Brian Free here from AutoNation. 27 years in the business. Thank you, Brian, for joining us, by the way. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, I got in retail in 2001, straight out of high school, and started with selling cars on eBay and became successful at that, and ended up ending my career with about 14 years with the same group as a variable ops director. And now I've joined CarCutter. I've been there on my third year. And I'm really excited to get to talk about something that, like Kyle was saying about Ben. Ben's such a freaking smart dude. And he says things that really make you think, but it's like, why put a cheese in the broken mousetrap? Why are we spending so much money and time and energy to lead people to that broken mousetrap?
Brian, I'm sure when you think back about your time in retail, one of the things that always that shocks me is the volume of expense that we put on our fixed assets, right? Our buildings, our showrooms. Can you give us a little bit of a juxtaposition between, the time and energy that a retail operation, maybe like an AutoNation or others that you've seen out there, put into the physical showroom, its appearance, its build, its cleanliness, its updated, and maybe juxtapose that on how you see our industry kind of treating the digital showroom in comparison to that?
Sure. Great question. Yeah. I mean, clearly the physical appearance of the dealerships and having that all working right is a big part of it. The OEMs drive a lot of that, as you know that there's standards and things that need to be done. So that's, I think, well run everywhere. Facilities always need upgrading. And I think that digital, I'd say post-COVID now has that kind of attention. You really kind of opened everybody's eyes when the stores were shut that, we knew it, as digital marketers, we knew that our customers were there and always, on the digital website properties, but it really kind of opened everybody's eyes to say, hey, this needs to be a world-class experience too. It's not just physical, that the whole website, the whole customer interaction, personalization, all those things together is, it's treating a customer just like they walked into the showroom, where they were walking the front line, wandering the lot on their own. That, someone just wanders up to your website. If you don't give them, that world-class experience, guess what? There's lots of other websites to go to, and they probably will.
Can you explain, I hear the phrase world-class a lot in this industry, right? And I can't remember who it was, but maybe it was the Ritz-Carlton or somebody put this world-class language into the industry. It was probably like 20 years ago. And like all of a sudden, it kind of caught fire. When you think of a world-class website experience, right? Yeah. Digital merchandising experience, what does that translate from your mind?
Yeah. I mean, it's soup to nuts, right? So one, it's a website that's fast loading, right? Basic stuff, but it's fast. Information needs to be really clearly identified and get to, right? There's really 3 or 4 automotive websites are pretty flat, right? It's new car, used car, scheduled service appointment, some additional things, financing and some, some incentives, but really making it easy to find, very laid out cleanly, not getting to a VDP with 25 calls to action, 3 pop-ups, that you're just annoying people. Yeah, they have to click through to kind of get to it. And then we all know, when we talk about imagery and merchandising, that, it's a mixed bag, right? That you rely on the OEMs for, detailed build information. And then how do you present that to customers in a clean and simple format? Just a big block of text. People don't want to do that. Scroll on, right? That you want to be able to engage them to say, hey, I give them a little bit of nugget. But if somebody's really into vehicle safety features, they can click through really easily and get to that. Or if they're interested in, is there a lease offer on this vehicle? Very clean up front, leasing and finance offers, right? So it's really that holistic approach to kind of say, keep the website simple, and again, it's driving to conversion, right? That you can spend all day building bells and whistles, get all these, neat, pick your color and a little bit of digital retailing, but at the end of the day, right, that the website's not selling the cars, it's the associates in the store, right? So you want to get these customers, you want to get them qualified, know what vehicle they're interested in, what they landed on, and get them into the hands of the associates that can take them on that journey.
So thinking, everybody's like,
just he's out here preaching, and I'm just mesmerized. I'm like, thank goodness someone feels that way. You know, I'm just happy that there's other people in this world that feel my pain. Daniel, when it comes to like, as we transition to thinking about specifically the imagery that we use, you know, there's kind of like a bunch of different opinions on like whether or not overlays and whether or not backgrounds and whether or not the place that you take the photo, if there's, you know, snow in the background or trees in the background or moss sitting on the ground or not. When you think about like specifically when someone gets the imagery, kind of like the eye candy of the car, why are we talking about like cleaning that up? What's the real why behind that? Is there and why is there an incentive to be thinking about a cleaner photo experience?
Well, that leads me to kind of start with people aren't going to a bunch of dealerships anymore, and we've known that for quite some time. But also, if you back up and go, well, why are they not going to a bunch of dealerships? We know it's because they're doing a lot of research online, right? But we also know that they're not going to keep going to a bunch of different websites. They're going to find their information. And when they do land on your website, first of all, you want to have an image of the car that they're looking at, and you want it to be clean and promote the product that they're looking to buy. I've had several conversations with people talking about the automotive industry, comparing it to many others. Kyle, you told me about a guy that you knew that sells shoes, right? Or worked with a shoe company that did photography, right? And when they had that shoe, they didn't have it amongst 40 other shoes in the background. They didn't have it one pair of shoes facing one way and another pair facing the other way. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense what we're constantly putting ourselves through. And so the slide that there was up a minute ago is we're worried about spending millions and millions of dollars, and I don't disagree with it, on beautiful facilities. But how do we drive traffic there? And it starts at your website. And we worry about how we're positioning inventory on that front line. We the old adage of putting all of your bumpers aligned all the way down, right? Having that straight front line. But what do we do on our website? So to answer your question, clean and consistent images is a huge part of that. There's two things that are going to promote a conversion better than anything else, and that's going to be price and pictures. And I promise you,
if you got that alliteration in there for us, listen to that.
Yes. Yeah. Because if you don't have solid pictures, man, or any pictures at all, it ain't working.
And the data, you know, just to add on, the data backs it up, right? That one of my big things too was looked at everything, what people were doing online, you know, from the first time, from the homepage, where they go, what interests them. And clearly, you know, when we moved to custom background images with CarCutter, you know, we saw a lift, right? We saw a lift both in page views, impressions of those, engagement with, you know, the photo gallery, and ultimately higher conversion. So we know it works. That if you give professional quality images, it's an engagement tool, and it drives customers to convert, and the data proves it.
I think it's funny, the slide that we just had up, the last one, it looked a lot of the variety of pictures. You had cars in different areas. It looked like a yard sale, you know. And one of the things that we talk about, there you go, there it's back on the screen right now. You got the back corner of a car, you got the front corner, you got one under a sheet. It says new arrival, right? It looks like who's even in charge around here. One of the elements of the sales process, you know, we talk about getting people in the ether, right? They're already going to naturally consider the numbers and the financing and the mechanics of it. But what can we do from a digital standpoint that's similar to what we do in person? The car pulls up, they open the door. Now we have like a multi-sensory experience in there, right? You can smell the leather and all that in person. We can't do that online. And so how do you get somebody in the ether with a photo? And the more things that are working against you, you're jettisoning people from what could potentially be that romanticized moment of looking at the car, imagining themselves in it, right? And the second you're putting things in the way of that, it's done. Just like the sneaker illustration, right? It just signifies lower quality, and it gets them thinking about other things. And, you know, Brian initially said, like, when I said, what makes a great website merchandising, he said, it's got to be fast. Why? Because people are just like, I'm going to think of something else if you don't give me something to think about right now.
Exactly.
like immediately. And so good photos, like I think of that all the moment I have to work, and this principle works for messaging too. The moment my brain starts to have to work to make sense of what I'm seeing, like I'm already thinking about something else.
And we all know that buying a car is an emotional experience, right? That you want to make people fall in love with that car. Yeah, I love that blue one. So they love it. They go all the way to the end of the photo gallery, right? Oh, what does the trunk look like? And it's got that collision avoidance system. Oh, it's got the backup camera, right? That people that's exactly what they would be asking a sales associate on the floor, right? So if you're not showing that to them. And letting them build that engagement and build that excitement to say, you know what, I'm ready to talk to somebody because I want that blue one. I really liked it. Right. Everything about it was really cool.
Oh, we got some music playing now.
Oh,
So I think during the COVID period, pre-COVID, I think there were some very significant barriers to entry to real professional looking photos. And just like even the fact that we're on this webinar right now, right? We know how to set it up. We know how to look decent in front of a camera. We know how to sound right. We didn't know that pre-COVID, right? No one even knew how to use Zoom in the auto industry, like not a person, right? And so now technology has changed, and now the ability to get professional grade photos is much more accessible than it was 3-4 years ago. So can we talk about that for a second? I mean, y'all have developed technology to do it, but maybe Daniel, you walk us through like the big change that's happened.
Yeah. So while I'm a huge proponent of CarCutter, right, because that's my job, but there's lots of technology out there.
That's perfect. That was just so sublime. I'm just gonna call it like
right. But I my dealer at heart, my being so long in the automotive industry, I want to see such a huge drastic change. But there's so much dedicated technology out there, and CarCutter in particular allows you to capture images. It makes putting anyone into the photographer spot super easy, because as a dealership, as a dealer group, they can tell us exactly what images they want to capture each and every time, and we can make sure that the photographer does that. They can't take a picture that's out of line, that's not the right angle that the dealer wants each and every time. And what's even cooler about it is we can take feeds as well. So if there's, like in the case of AutoNation, where we couldn't go in and reinvent the wheel with maybe our app, right, our mobile application, they have tons of different people on the ground, whether it be third-party lot services or whatnot, that's able to send us a feed. And in that feed, we can then digest those images and rearrange them exactly how they want them merchandised, which is important, right? The fact of how you capture them and what images you capture is one list of things that you want to check off. I want to make sure every time I got 8 exterior images, I want to make sure I got so many tires, or I want to make sure I get certain equipment, moonroof, leather, those types of things every time. But how do customers, for me, on my website, because I'm the dealer owner, how do I want them to look on my website? What angles do I want to see? And so lots of things that we have right now available that's super easy. I kid and say we make it idiot proof. Like really we do, where anybody can be an awesome photographer, and we take care of all the background, making that car, as cliche as this sounds, the star,
Yeah.
And to follow up, right, it's the tech is the big part, right? I mean, we're all of us here, all automotive guys. We know there's lots of arms and legs on every solution, and there's so much interconnectivity between systems. And that's one of the key things of CarCutter, is that no matter if you're a single rooftop and you do your photos yourself, or you're a large group and you have a lot service vendor, every flavor works, right? And it's easy to plug in. That's what made my life easy in my role, was one less thing to worry about, right? That I didn't have to worry about all these connections or things were broken, that you have a technology partner that can support all that and works with all your vendors. That's a dream. That really makes your life a lot easier, and you focus on other things, right? And you're not fighting fires of, the feed didn't work today, or the photos didn't get refreshed. Like you got to get away from all that and really focus on better quality merchandising.
What do you think? What's standing in the way, right? It seems like there are a lot of solutions out there, and there's a lot of tech available that wasn't available 4 or 5 years ago. What are the main hurdles standing between somebody pulling the trigger on like getting better photos? What are the excuses that you hear? What are the reasons people say why they're not doing that right now?
If I may, I find it, and this is why it's kind of my mission, but I find so many people deprioritizing good quality images. And I think there's a lot of things that are happening in the industry, right? You've got a ton of AI solutions for different things. Just coming from MRC, the buzzword being CDPs, right? But one thing's for sure, we're spending a ton of money on our websites. Y'all talked about it on the intro. Ton of money on websites, ton of money on paid search, ton of money on SEO, and we're leading them to what, right? We're leading them to images that are either terrible quality, like we showed on that first slide. We have, weather, snow, or we have, them facing different ways. Or I think about this often. I don't know if y'all remember our podcast that we did. I've been thinking about this a lot, where the cars with the sheets on it. Why don't we go do that on a car lot, right? When we talked about it, the cars with the sheets on it coming soon. It's like, right. well, what's coming soon? What's it look like? What shapes it in? Does it have certain equipment? And you can't see those things without images.
That's right.
And I think you're back to what I mentioned before about data. You just got to show.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
I was on an education mission to tell people why it mattered, why we're spending this much money, or why do we have, why do we think it was important? And it's like, you can show the results. So I think the dealers that don't get it still is they haven't had that they haven't, someone hasn't told them that, right? To say, hey, look, when you have quality photos and well merchandised vehicles, guess what? Your conversion rate goes up, you get more clicks, you get more engagement, and even if they don't click, right, that if they went through the photo gallery, there's probably a really good chance that they're going to show up in your dealership, right? That they spent that time like, I don't know if I want my phone to ring in the next 10 minutes, but I will go out there on Saturday morning. And and what made that decision was they knew what the car was all about, that car that they were interested in.
Time on site too is huge. It goes up tremendously when people are able to see the images because they're going through.
What are some of those data points, like conversion rates or SRP to VDP conversion or third-party lift in VDPs? Like what are some of those hard data points? Do you have them in front of you, Daniel?
I'll tell you this, and I'll pitch it over to Brian. But one of my partners shared with us early on when they got 21 of their locations onto CarCutter, so everything was clean, consistent. And then another little point that I might add is branded by that dealer group, so that no matter where you saw those cars, you knew that was whose cars they were. But they saw a 52% increase in VDP clicks, which was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
They told us, because I don't know if you guys know anything about data, but it's hard to trace a picture once it leaves our server.
Right.
So we can't really tell anyone. They are the ones that told us. And so it was bananas, to say the least. Yeah. Brian, tell them more.
Certainly some sites have that kind of lift, but just generally that there was that lift, and Daniel's right that it's hard to do, right? That's always going to be on the dealer's shoulders, maybe a little bit on the website providers, but they don't do a good job at it either. So we had, fortunately being a big group, I had some of those resources and was able to tag everything on websites on my own, right? That I just wanted to know how they were doing. So you definitely see that. Daniel mentioned time on site. Those are all the KPIs that we were looking at, right? Number of impressions, and the OEs are interested in that too, right? That a lot of the luxuries now are coming back to you and saying, hey, month over month your VDP views aren't growing, or your click-through rate's not growing, and so they're starting to go there too, right? So again, it goes all the way back to if a dealer's not knowing those numbers and not understanding what that means, that's the problem. It's not like convincing them that photos matter. Is you got to tell them why photos matter first, and then they'll get it.
Well, okay, so this is like the quick trigger test for everybody that's watching or listening or us in the room. Like, do me a favor, picture a Carvana photo. Like, it's there in your brain.
You know it,
right? You know exactly what it looks like. You've seen it enough times, and on a localized level, I'm sure, like, this is actually a piece of like branding who you are locally, both on the third-party sites and on your sites. Absolutely. So, when you think about brand, like, this is a part of the branding exercise of an organization, especially like an AutoNation, or as consolidation happens, a regionally focused group, but even at a single point level, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. You'd be amazed. Like, NADA is coming up. Like I'd go to NADA, talk about, what we were doing, and everyone's like, I always know an AutoNation vehicle, no matter where it is on the internet.
That's what a compliment.
Branded, and I'm like, mission accomplished.
What
right?
a compliment.
I don't care where my cars are. I just want them to know where they are,
right.
I don't really care what site
and
it
I think
is,
especially
what dealership they came from.
Especially when you're on third-party sites.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right. And you're surrounded with all these other brands and the branding of the third-party site. Like what a better reason to do it. All right. We're kind of rounding the home stretch here. Let me give us a quick review. So we talked about number one, thinking about your website as your digital storefront. We talked about the impact that great imagery can have. We talked about how you can leverage dedicated technology in order to get the solutions that you want to create strong and consistent professional images with a lot of branding. But let's get to kind of like the last thing. It's like, if the vehicle doesn't exist on the website, it pretty much doesn't exist in the marketplace. Right. So how does this get inventory published faster, and why is that so important?
Yeah. So with CarCutter, we have the ability to take images, obviously the ones that you could capture on your lot, right? But what about that car that's in transit? What about that car that was just traded? What about that car that, is being built right now? We have the ability to pull feeds and get those in those same clean, consistent backgrounds until they get here. We can do it with stock images and CGI images through some of your OEM partners. Like VinReal with Ford is a perfect, for instance. We can pull those images in. Those are super high quality. But once that car hits the ground, you can shoot the actual car. And then we'll put that into the same clean, consistent background. If you want to check one out, check out Koons.com. It'll blow your mind. That's my other little plug. That is,
and that's KOONS.com.
Correct. KOONS.com. And we talk about speed on site and lots of different things when it comes to speed, but that car is sitting in your inventory right now, folks that are watching. That car that is sitting in your inventory that you bought from the auction yesterday, that you traded in yesterday, and that $20, $30, $50, $100,000 piece, nobody knows about. You know why? Because it doesn't have a picture yet, and nobody's going to know about it until you get it pictured and priced. I'll get off my soapbox.
It's a valid soapbox. Listen, final words, right? We got a minute or so left. What are you saying to people, to dealers who are like, oh, is this the year? Is this the year? Like heading into 2025, a lot of stuff shifting and changing. Why is this the year that they should make the transition?
Right.
Yeah. Merchandising is key, right? We've talked about a million times that customers shopping online for anything other than autos, it's an experience they expect, that they know the product, they see it, they can almost physically touch it, they can spin it, whatever, that automotive dealers have to figure that out and say, we need that to provide that same experience, because the customers are there, right? It's either you're going to win them because you're presenting and merchandising your products and really making a distinction, right? If, another big thing we haven't talked about is like, why merchandising matter at an individual VIN level, right? You could have two, Jeep, Wranglers. Right. One is $10,000 more. Well, why? Right? Yeah. If you don't tell a customer because it's got a lift kit and special rims and it's got a tow package, like that, you have to communicate that way, and customers expect it.
That's awesome. Well, gents, man, this is, again, we say this every time, but these quick shot edge webinars definitely keep us on our seat, get us a ton of information. I think if people aren't thinking about this as we go into a time where we're going to be competing for customers like we never have before on new and used cars, you want to be thinking about the mousetrap as you're spending all this money on the cheese, and making sure that merchandising is the first step to getting your vehicles in front of the right eyeballs and getting people engaged with them. Daniel, Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a blast.
That was strong, Kyle. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Appreciate it.
Attention car dealers. 90% of car sales start with a click. A click on a clean, professional image. Increase your click rates by up to 52% with professional, high-resolution, sleek, crisp, eye-catching images, specially designed to turn more viewers into buyers. But getting those images is time-consuming, expensive, challenging? Wrong. Create stunning car images fast, easy, and fully automated.
All right, everyone. That was a great webinar. We're so glad you're here, and we'll see you next time. If you missed it or you want to catch it again, you can always catch it on our website, ASOTU.com. Go to the media button, drop down, and go to ASOTU Edge webinars. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.